The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you. Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
your happy little band of murder hobos, that is, Eric Velasquez. My pronouns also he, him.
Yeah, so, we kind of were talking last week that, this movie, Phantom of the Paradise is sort of a gray area Frankenstein in that, it's got a lot of magic and mysticism and devils and stuff. Mm-hmm. And this feels like kind of the appropriate one to follow because it's similar in that we're kind of pushing what counts as a Frankenstein to talk about this one.
Yeah, we've got the devil 2 weeks in a row, right?
Yeah. This one, I'll admit, I just really like the Addams Family, and this is the first movie they've done that's even remotely Frankenstein-ish. So it was let's talk about one of their movies.
Now we're not talking about Wednesday and Gomez and Morticia and all of them. No. This is Zelda, and what are her parents' names? They're filmmakers.
John is the dad, and Toby Poser is the mom, and then they also have another sister or another daughter or sister, Lulu, who doesn't act as much, but is occasional. She's in this one scene, but she's kind of, I think, does more behind the scenes stuff.
Now, also, aren't they technically part of a band called Hellbender or something like that?
Yeah, so the dad and Zelda, and I think the mom a little bit, they have a couple different bands. All of the kind of heavy rock music in this movie is all them. Their last movie was called Hellbender, and was about a teenage girl and her mom who are both witches and also are in a rock band. Right. So they really leaned into the music in the last movie, but they still just, even with this being kind of a period piece, they're still just fuck it, we're going to put our good rock music over it anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, there are good portions of this movie that are just man, that's a pretty cool music video, right?
Yes. Yeah, there's especially there's one that is literally just a music video that
just doesn't. Music video.
Yeah. They're clearly they're just having fun with making movies and being creative together, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I mean, the main characters, like you said, played by the Addams Family, being Seven is John, Toby Poser is Maggie, and Zelda is Eve, the main characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is all sort of set. It's in the 30s. I mean, it's Depression era, right?
Yeah, it's definitely right in the smack dab of that because World War I has happened. I'm assuming it doesn't look like that was World War II with the way the uniforms were designed.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, and we see a couple old cars and stuff. Everything points to the 30s.
And not Model T, but pretty damn close.
Yeah, and even the movie starts. And it actually, this is a sort of Frankenstein-y thing. The movie starts with an empty stage and a man coming out, but instead of warning us about the story that's about to unfold,
he does a little poetry.
Yeah, he reads this poem, and the footage here is black and white. They've got added some fake film grain and everything, so it looks like that. And the poem, I mean, it's pretty long, but it's describing this sort of
the fall of Abaddon.
Yeah, it's he comes to Earth and he falls in love with a woman and they have a relationship, but of course she's mortal and eventually dies, and he tries to revive her, but instead basically creates an immortal heart, but the lover rots around the heart, so the heart is just still left behind.
But for some reason there's a needle in the heart. I guess that's how he revived her, maybe?
Yeah. There's like a needle stuck in the heart, and there in that tear is where the devil roams. That's like the last line of the poem, and where the title obviously comes from.
Well, yeah, but also, did the beginning of this film, did it give you like what's it called? Like the 1930s Freaks vibes?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has, as the movie goes, we're going to get a lot of like circus performers and stuff. But yeah, just right to start with, we have this, we didn't even say, the guy that comes out to read this poem has no legs. He kind of, comes out like walking on his hands. And he's like got a lot of tattoos and piercings and stuff. Like his hands are tattooed. He's got like, I think a nose ring, and his lips pierced as well and stuff. Like he's, which, this being the 30s, I mean, that he's tattooed and pierced to the point that he would be notable today, but like in the 1930s, he would be much more notable. This movie, I'm surprised, like the Addams Family does a really good job of like mixing practical effects and like composite stuff, where like, there are points where like maybe you might notice like, that doesn't quite look real, but like it doesn't look hokey. Like they've really kind of mastered being able to mix the real or the practical and the digital stuff together in a way that makes it feel more believable.
Well, until it comes to tanks, then it's like, we got those off Premiere Pro. That's what I'm kidding. Those do look a little silly.
Yeah. But so yeah, it's once he finishes the poem, we cut to this sort of like unrelated scene that kind of sets this movie up as being clearly very dark, and that like there's sort of a mystery here as to what might be going on. We have like a young girl who seems to be murdering her parents,
and she apparently she has a sister, a twin sister.
Yeah, and it's like the one sister is like hiding under a bed or something, while the first, she's got like some sort of like leather punch or something. It's just like a sharp, it's not a screwdriver. Yeah, and she's just like stabbing her mom in the back, and then like the scared sister hiding under the bed, she hands her the tool, and the girl crawls out from under the bed and joins in.
Oh, also the dog there just doesn't give a shit that. Yeah, the dog doesn't give a shit that the family's being murdered as well.
Yeah. So, I
really wish I knew what this meant.
Yeah, like there's later we kind of get something that might be what it's about, but like the pieces don't quite add up. Like it's never fully explained as much as you would hope. And like that's, we just end with these two sisters committing murder, and then we cut to our main character Eve, Zelda Adams, who is just like walking through like a small town.
Now she's kind of wearing stuff that could be old timey, but it could also be fairly modern as well, right?
Yeah, it is kind of distracting.
She's kind of anachronistic.
Yeah, it doesn't look very obviously like 1930s stuff, but you do see like old cars driving past her and all. It's like a little old general store. Like everything looks very old timey, but she's sort of outside of time.
Yeah.
But she eventually arrives at the general store, and there's a guy sleeping in a rocking chair on the porch. She sets a creepy doll in his lap. I'm not really sure why. She's a very odd girl. Like, well, obviously this whole family is strange. And then she, goes inside and is shopping, but also like stealing, doing a little bit of both, which is the best way.
She doesn't want the statue of Jesus to see her.
Oh yeah.
She turns that around.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the classic easiest way to steal from a store is you buy a couple things and you steal a couple things, and then they don't pay as much attention to you. If you just walk in and then stroll back out without buying anything, they're gonna be like, "What was up with that?" But
it's like she's buying old rotten fruit, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that old rotten fruit.
Yes. Yeah. Depression again. People are getting by with what they can. She will also bump into a heavily tattooed woman who's like, "Hey, Eve, when you get back to camp, I'll do your hair up the way you like." And
right, this is Rocky, played by her stage name is amazing, but Razor de Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I think she's like she does like burlesque or something like that. But then we also will meet another man, we won't get his name for a while, Mr. Tips. He also comes into the store. He's clearly the magician. Like, you can tell right away. He's got a big tall hat and a big cape and everything, and he's just kind of weird.
Well, I was like, could this guy be the devil?
And he just comes there and buys a big ass pair of scissors and leaves.
Mm-hmm. Well, he threatens her too, right? He threatens to cut her fingers off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he notices she's stealing, and he's like, if you're not good, I might snip off those nimble fingers.
Right.
And then after he leaves, she finds another pair of scissors for sale and uses them to cut the arm off of a doll that's for sale.
Clearly he was inspiration, right?
Right, yeah. We don't really see her check out or anything. That we see her cut the doll's arm off, and then we just are at the carnival. And I think this is simultaneously like cool in sort of like an interesting setting, but I think it's also a good cost-saving thing. Most of the time in this, we're like in the backstage area of this carnival, so we don't have the big pretty displays. We don't have the bright lights. It's just plywood and old benches and stuff. It's just like the performers on their breaks and stuff.
They're just sitting there shooting the shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this case, though, we get a lot of the, like you said, the performers kind of just sitting around, some of them painting their faces and things like that. But then Eve stumbles upon a tent, and is this her mom and dad run out butthole naked?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah.
And this is the start of our first music video, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, I think she got back to camp before they expected her to, and they were maybe up to something else and got surprised.
It's a shame they don't have the tent for the rest of the movie, though.
Yeah, they sleep in some of the most awful conditions throughout this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that. Like you said, it's a music video. We get just a montage of people preparing to perform, then some shots of them actually performing, and again, it's very. Everyone's heavily tattooed and pierced and very goth, and it's just. They're all, again, would be strange looking to the average person today. That montage eventually just kind of rolls into, we finally get to see what Eve and her family, what their performances are like.
Which is fucking art school. I don't want to say art school student, but it's definitely very artsy.
Yeah. And so up to this point, we haven't had a lot of time with Eve, so it's not immediately obvious, but Eve has not spoken yet, and we will learn that she cannot speak, but she can sing. And so
this is selective mutism.
Yeah, and that's what their performances are. She dresses like an angel, has the little wings and everything, and sings a song a cappella while her parents,
and mom and dad, do a dance.
Yeah, they
interpretive dance.
Yeah, they flank her, and they just kind of move slowly and pose in different positions and move their arms and legs, but it's not a very active kind of dance. No. And no one seems to like it. There's 3 people watching, and they don't seem particularly interested in it.
Right. Which makes you wonder, why the carnival keeps them around, right?
Yeah. Well, and it cuts right from that to them working the midway games. So maybe that's it. That they just they're just kind of do a little bit of everything, and the owner or whatever is sure, you can perform on one of the little stages occasionally too.
And we'll learn that Seven is kind of he's not a doctor, but kind of a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he patches people up.
Yeah.
But also, we get one of the main kind of things about this movie, and it looks like this portly rich guy is scamming a farmer out of his land.
Yeah.
And not too many people are enjoying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's because he's talking to Seven and Maggie, and is what's the scam with the game you're playing, or that you're, hosting or whatever? And they're no scam. You get 3 rings on bottles or whatever, you get a prize. And he's like, nah, I'm too smart for that. If I wasn't smart, I wouldn't have been able to hoodwink these he's bragging about the awful things he's doing, and that he's so clever. So after he kind of walks off, he's not going to be fooled by them, so he doesn't play the game. Then we finally get a performance from Mr. Tips. It's very religious tinged. He's he's not quoting the Bible, but it's like he sounds like a preacher the way he's talking.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't like from Paradise Lost or something like that.
Yeah. But what his performance actually is, he sets a bucket down in front of him. He pulls out those scissors that he bought earlier, and he just cuts off each of his fingers, on one hand, just one at a time. They clunk down in the bucket, and then he picks up the bucket, walks off stage. That's the whole thing.
Yep. I don't know why so many people love this performance, though. But people really do.
Yeah, they're really impressed, which it seems like, usually when magicians do, like, the saw the lady in half or whatever, the exciting part is once he's put her back together. Yeah, you have to see that to get sort of, like, the closure of the scene, But in this case, no.
No, other than this is just a masochist cutting off his own damn fingers.
Right, yeah. And yeah, he gets a big applause, and then we just kind of cut to like that night. All the performers are gathered around a campfire. They're resting after all of their performances and everything.
Yeah, Rocky's jamming out on her ukulele.
Yeah, and she's just like kind of strumming, like she's not like shredding or anything, but like Maggie's very impressed. This is the first time we really get like Maggie talking about, and Maggie, she's very simple, she's not like, I wouldn't say she's like mentally handicapped or anything, but like she's just like a simple, uneducated lady who's just kind of doing her best, and
yep, that'll come out later for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so like they're just kind of chatting about that, and then they're all talking about Mr. Tip's performance and how does that work. And Rocky's like, I think he's got to deal with the devil, and that never goes well.
Right, he was kissed by the devil, right?
Yeah.
She kind of waxes poetic in a kind of low key way a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Rocky's she's like a minor character. She's only in a few scenes, but she steals the show in every scene she's in. Like she's got a really kind of interesting charisma to her. And in this scene, she even
kind of a Betty Boop.
Yeah, definitely has that kind of look to her. She ends up giving Maggie her ukulele, and Maggie's like, "No, I couldn't take that. You play it so beautifully. Why would I want it? I can't do anything." And Rocky's like, "I've got 3 others. You should learn. It'll be good for you. You should do that. Practice, and maybe you'll be able to perform with it someday."
Yep. And also, there's another minor character. I think she has way less screen time than Rocky, and Rocky doesn't get much. But she's played by a Japanese actress. What's her name? Let me pull that up real quick. Hitomi Nakamura. The character is named Nezumi Ona. Do you know what that means, Anthony?
No, I don't think so.
So Nezu means like mouse or rat. Ona means woman, so mouse or rat woman.
Okay. Interesting.
So, I don't know. I'm guessing she picked the name herself. I have no idea because, like, she does open her mouth really wide, and I guess she has prominent, like, front teeth.
Okay. Huh.
Maybe. I don't know. That's her thing. I don't know why that's cool, but, like, that's her thing.
Okay. Yeah, and she does she ever speak English in the movie? Like, I feel like you hear her talk.
No, she's only Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie does a good job of like it's just populated. There's all these like there's characters that you'll see frequently in the background. There's 2 clowns that have like really creepy grease paint makeup. There's like one really goth looking guy that kind of has like a Marilyn Manson vibe to him. Like
no shit.
Yeah.
Like legitimate. And I'm like, what's his thing? Like I think he sings in part of the movie. Like for a moment he's a background singer.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just
vocals.
like this is the world, it feels real because we just have all these people that we'll see over and over again that aren't like part of our story, but they're there in the background.
Yeah, to a degree they're part of the story. Right?
Yeah.
But also we have Dr. Snips, and he just senses that Eve's in the room with him as he's getting ready to sew his fingers back on.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, you want to see me fix the tips?" And this is where it becomes really clear. Like she just kind of like stands there. Like it's a one-way conversation. She definitely is not capable of speaking. And in fact, he's like, well, the devil knows you can keep a secret. And he tells her this whole story about that he went to the circus as a child. He ends up showing her that like that there was like a performer that he kind of implies that he didn't exactly steal it, that the guy sort of wanted to get rid of it, but he also says the guy was like drunk, and he says stinking of wine and piss. Yeah, so it sounds more like he stole it and justified it to himself. But
yeah, I believe the guy who he stole it from, his name was Broken Cane. So, I mean, you can only imagine what his act was. Right?
Yeah. But yeah, so we see here he's got in a box a human heart with a needle sticking out of it, and it's got thread coming out of it, and he pulls the needle out, sews his fingers back on.
He starts reciting that poem from earlier a little bit.
It's like the last stanza or so. There's a tear in the heart where the devil roams. He's like, the guy I stole it from, he was like really run down from all of the damage he'd done to himself, and so I just stick to the tips. It's not, it's safer.
But you gotta recite that so the angels won't be able to hear you, and I guess reclaim you, or that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, and he's like, don't get any ideas. This wouldn't work for you because you're mute. You can't recite the poems, so there's no point in you even trying to steal this.
Then he basically tells her to piss off and don't try not to repeat anything. Ha ha ha! That's funny.
Yeah,
because she can't. And then we move on to the goth clowns, as I call them, talking about the fancy pants banker stealing the farm from Farmer Ned.
And they're all playing poker. It's like the two clowns, there's another guy, and Seven, Eve's father.
The other guy's Farmer Ned.
Oh, okay. So they're playing poker. Seven is winning. Like, he's doing really well. And like this hand, the clown is like, he's got it. He knows he's going to get his money back from Seven. He lays down his hand. I don't remember what it is, but I mean, it's a good hand. But Seven manages to have a slightly better hand and still wins.
It's a straight flush, pretty much. So,
and the clown is pissed. He's like, "You're cheating. There's no way you could have that. You're just fucking with us." And Seven, he's just like he's very like he doesn't speak much either. Like, he does talk, like he's not mute like Eve, but he's just kind of like just chill. He's just there.
Well, he also has a touch of the PTSD, as we'll learn here in a moment. But pretty much everyone goes to his defense. They're like, "Nah, he wasn't cheating. He's just that good."
Yeah. But yeah, the clown tries to like attack him, and then he goes into like some sort of seizure.
Well, what happens is one clown punches the other's face, and blood spatters on Seven's face.
Yeah.
And that's what sends him into the catatonic state.
Yeah. Maggie comes rushing into the tent at that point to try to like help snap him out of it. But we cut from that to a flashback. So like, as you said, this is war-based PTSD, and when he experiences violence in the present, it causes him to kind of flash back to violent moments from his past.
Yeah, or if he sees blood. Like, blood really gets him going.
Yeah. So, in this case, he comes upon this soldier who has, like, a severe injury. His arm is just all mangled up. He's gotten hit with shrapnel of some kind.
And he's like, "Hey, take it off.
Yeah.
Take off my arm.
Yeah, please. Like, I'm going to die. Just cut it off." And he keeps trying to be like, "No, I don't want to do this, and you don't want that. Like, maybe we can save the arm." And the soldier's like, "No, like, I need this done right now." So Seven finally agrees to do it, gets out like a hacksaw.
I feel like there's better saws. I feel like there were better saws at the time.
Yeah.
That they would have given.
Yeah, this looks like something you would see more out of like the Civil War rather than like World War One.
Right.
As soon as he gets the arm off, he's holding it up. He's horrified at what he's just done, and then the soldier gets his head blown off.
Right, like, this is a practical effect.
And
it's wild.
Yeah, it's gross. Like, it's really well done, but like, yeah, like, I mean, it looks great, and then but like thinking about how that must feel to have just done this horrific thing, and then it didn't matter at all. Yeah, I mean, no, this would definitely give you PTSD. It's a nightmare right there. Seven ends up waking up from that, like gasping for air. He's in his bed now. Somehow they've like gotten him to his bed.
Right. But obviously Maggie's his wife, but he's also sleeping with Eve. Like, all three of them are sleeping together.
Yeah, they like share not a big bed. They're all smashed together at like, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory style, like in a bed together.
I guess it's warmer that way.
Yeah. And we go straight from that to, like, the next day, Maggie is standing in a stream washing clothes.
Yeah, apparently Eve has just had her period, but it seems a little bit lighter than normal. And Maggie's like, well, you're losing a lot of weight, so eat some more biscuits, I guess.
Yeah. So Eve just kind of, like, walks back to camp from there. And then Maggie looks down and sees a baby shoe in the river and picks it up. And
what is up with the baby shoes?
yeah, like, eventually she will say, like, you know, I think going back to the scene at the very beginning, she mentions that, like, when she was young, her baby brother, her mom beat her baby brother to death because he lost a shoe. And she was upset about it. But Maggie was like, I actually lost his shoe, so it was my fault that I got him killed. So I think that the scene at the beginning was her getting revenge and killing her parents for having killed the baby brother.
So who's the twin?
Right, I have no idea. Like, she's just never mentioned at all. Like, you just have this girl in this one scene. But yeah, she frequently finds shoes, and it usually seems like she finds them before she does something bad. I don't know if it kind of, like, causes her to kind of, like, go into a fugue state a little bit, or if it's just kind of like a constant reminder of, like, her dark past or whatever. She even will lose her own shoes, like, once or twice in the movie.
But when she finds them, like, all the time, they are baby-sized shoes. They are not shoes for a grown human woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's definitely, like, I think both Seven and Maggie are experiencing PTSD and carrying their past with them. And, you know, Seven experiences it through PTSD flashbacks, and Maggie sort of has this sort of, you know, mystical thing where she just sees shoes often. I don't know if they're sort of hallucinated or what, but, like, yeah, it's definitely her carrying her past with her.
Right, and it's also interesting, though, that whenever they go through those moments, he becomes super passive, whereas she becomes super aggressive.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, because I think next scene we see after she finds the shoe is the family is in a car driving out of town.
They're also, they have a small little heavy rock montage as the family rides out. And for some reason, then they're in a field, and Eve's cutting Seven's face with some fucking shears.
Mm-hmm. She's, like, trimming his beard.
Razors.
Yeah. She's trimming his beard with, like, big-ass scissors.
Right. I would definitely prefer just a straight razor, even if it was slightly rusty.
Yeah.
But, maybe he doesn't Maybe he doesn't do it because there's the risk he could cut himself.
Could be, yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking about this too much. But we get the discussion about how everybody in the family pretty much hates Christians.
Mm-hmm. Seven is currently reading a book about early Christianity, specifically, like, the Gnostics. And Maggie's like, but you hate Christians. Why would you read that? And he's like, well, it's still interesting. And the Gnostics, they're different. They thought the devil was right. They think the whole world is upside down and the devil is the one who's going to be able to fix it all. And Maggie's like, I kind of like those Christians too. Like,
I don't think that's what the Gnostics thought.
yeah. They're. I'm not an like, but they're like, it's like Gnosticism. Like, it's about, like, learning and stuff, right? Like, they're more, like, fact based and less.
There's that, and also that, like, the God of the Bible is actually kind of the devil, and there's a God over that guy who sent Jesus. So.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. That does make sense. So he's not completely wrong. He's just slightly interpreting incorrectly, but, like,
kind of upside down to a degree, right?
Yeah. So then we just cut to them knocking on a door late at night, and who should answer but that guy, the man who said he scammed the farmer out of his land and everything.
Right. And why does Maggie have a hatchet, Anthony? She just has a hatchet that she just flourishes behind her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's holding it behind her back, but it's like she's holding it up high, like it's. But she's like, she says something not, like, "Thanks for welcoming us to your home" or something like that. Like, and the guy's like, "Wait, what? What's happening?"
Right.
And we just immediately cut to everyone sitting down around the dinner table, and the guy looks fucking terrified.
Right. And every once in a while he says, "Hey, honey, could you bring out dinner?"
Yeah.
But she never comes out.
Yeah. Maggie comes walking out. She's got food and everything. Maggie's just kind of like talking, sort of not really saying anything, just kind of being ominous and sort of vaguely threatening.
Right, but they start blindfolding Seven, so it's like, what's going on, guys?
Yeah, I love that touch, that because he has PTSD, they do violence, but he can't see it.
Right.
So yeah, the guy starts. He realizes shit's going bad, and he starts trying to defend what he did. Like, if I hadn't have repossessed the farm, someone else would have. It's just the way things are.
Yeah, it's a failing farm anyway.
Yeah, and Maggie's like, it's not just the farm. Like, when you do things like this, you take a little bit from the community. We all suffer because of this one piece of our community that has like homeostasis. When you shift something out of it, everything kind of gets misaligned. And like, if we lift up our neighbors, it lifts up our whole community, and you're doing the opposite.
Right. So she does what everyone back for the last, 10, 20 years has wanted to do, and beats the guy to death with a cast iron skillet.
Yes. It's so good. Mm-hmm. The whole time, Eve and Seven are just eating. Seven's got his blindfold on, but he's still just eating. And yeah, Eve's just completely not fazed by this at all.
Yeah, she's loving it, actually, I think.
Yeah.
She's like, hell yeah.
Cut to like later on that evening, the family's still in the house. We have the corpse of that man and also his wife. They're both dead. Yeah. And they're just kind of arranging things, cleaning up a little bit, but they're not really concerned about cleaning up the bodies. Eve takes some...
Who's going to track them down in the 1930s, right?
Right, yeah. Eve's even like taking pictures of the corpses, which seems like a really bad plan, like photographing evidence.
Yeah, evidence what? Huh? What is that?
From that, we just cut back to the carnival. Or actually, it's like this is another music video.
Yeah.
It's a montage of a lot of carnival performances, and also the family doing some more murders, Eve taking more pictures.
Yeah, they just go on a murder spree about the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It does seem like they're focused more on the more affluent citizens. So, once again, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I feel like, though, at the time, this would immediately get the cops, like, on their asses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's not so much about the murders, it's about the economic implications of the specific murders that are happening.
Right.
It's kind of like, there's some Robin Hood-ness to this. They're not, like, taking anything, but they're sort of getting revenge for, like, the one percenters that are parasites on the community.
Right. It's almost like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of flavor to it, right?
Absolutely, for sure. And yeah, we get, some of the classic like spinning newspapers that are telling the headlines, and yeah, they're all specifically corrupt people. When the montage ends, we've got the family, they're sleeping out in a field somewhere. Maggie is snoring, Seven's like trying to nudge her and wake her up so she'll stop.
Right. And he's like, honey, you're sawing logs. And she's like, nope, that's you. You're sawing logs.
Yeah. And he's like, actually, we need to get up anyway. This land is posted. We don't want to get a trespassing charge. Yeah. So I don't think it's still a thing, but it used to be that like you could kind of trespass at night on land that's not specifically occupied. Like you couldn't like just, camp in somebody's backyard, but if they had like a farm with like a big patch of land, as long as you were like gone before daylight, it was sort of okay. I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, it's like people actually gave a shit about other human beings, right?
Yeah.
I think this is actually still legal in like Norway and the Nordic countries.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, there's like a term for it even like in England, it's like free walker or something like that. I don't remember the term, but like where you're allowed to just kind of roam.
Right, as long as you're not stealing anything or like causing any problems for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we get like later they're trying to get a different place to stay for the next night, and they find a home that's got a room for rent. Also,
real quick though, the guy sees an eagle, and like he's like enamored with the eagle for whatever reason.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember seeing that.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but that becomes a theme. Like, is it because it's a representation of freedom, or like what is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but there are definitely just shots of, just the sky with eagles circling overhead. But so they get to this house, There's a sign out front that says room for rent, 75 cents per night.
Per night. Okay, makes sense.
Maggie knocks on the door, and this woman answers, and they're like, we're here for the room. And she's like, okay, there's 3 of you, that'll be 75 cents per person, that'll be $2.25. And
Right.
Maggie's like, wait, no, it says 75 cents for the room. And she's like, yeah, per person.
Per person, per night.
Yeah. So they like kind of just get into it seems to me like the woman's like, I know you could barely scrape 75 cents together, and I don't want you in my house. You're
Right.
dirty people. So I'm going to use this as a way to get rid of you, basically.
Right. And it seems okay, and she walks away, but then she does that thing after they start driving off where she's like, 7, turn around.
Yeah.
And he's like, nope, not this time, Maggie. Not going to happen.
Yeah. He's like, why don't we set up camp somewhere, you can fix us some soup. And then she starts thinking about like the food they have, and that distracts her. She's like, yeah, I do have a potato, got an apple.
Right.
It's kind of rotten, but I bet it would make the soup sweet, and you wouldn't taste the rot in the soup.
Right, we put some onion in there with it.
Yeah,
yeah. Those are flavors, for sure.
Yeah. And
By the way, she picked the rotten apple earlier. She climbed a tree and picked it.
Yeah. And then we see a little later, the family has set up camp. They're sitting around a fire. Maggie's trying to learn the ukulele, and she's talking about, I think Rocky mentioned this earlier, there's some sort of big circus performance thing called the Buffalo Horror Show.
That sounds like something you would hear in like a Rob Zombie song, right?
Yeah, for real. Yeah. And Maggie's like, you think someday we'll get called up to perform at the Buffalo Horror Show? And Seven's like, no, we're not good.
Right.
Like we
suck.
Yeah, we just perform so that it gives us an opportunity to travel so we can do our murders. That's our actual thing.
Yeah, that's our job, is murdering.
The performance is just a cover.
I mean, that works, sure, okay.
Yeah. And then
but Maggie has a toothache.
Yeah, she's rubbing her face, and she's like, I need to get this tooth out. And Seven's like, oh, well, I can't help you there. And she's like, yeah, you got doctor skills, you can do it. And he's like, I don't have the tools. It's a whole different thing, which is true.
Right, I'm not that kind of doctor, yeah.
Yeah, even today, doctors and dentists are totally separate.
Definitely do not go to a doctor for your dental issue.
Yeah. But eventually he agrees. But because he can't see anything violent, he puts a blindfold on, and he has a hammer and a screwdriver in Maggie's mouth.
Yep.
And he's
like, hey, Eve, get the tooth as soon as it comes out, so we don't want her choking on it.
Yeah, and if it doesn't come out, you just got to set the screwdriver back in the right place so I can hit it again.
Yeah.
Which is what he has to do. He does it once, and it doesn't come out. He does it again, then it pops out. And like Maggie's just got like blood running down her face afterwards. She's like, oh, that's it's so much better. I'm going to go to sleep now. I feel great. It's just like goes to lay down as blood's pouring out of her mouth.
It's like, I feel like maybe you shouldn't, though.
Yeah.
You should do something about all the blood.
Yeah.
But Seven now has another World War I flashback.
Mm-hmm. So even the blindfold there didn't help. Mm-hmm. And here he's like running through like the woods. He sees a soldier on his side standing up to surrender to some Germans, and they just mow him down. Like they're not taking prisoners.
And it's like Seven's running off, but he gets shot too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The German soldier shoots him in the back.
Yeah. And he wakes up from that, right? Isn't that?
Mm-hmm.
When he gets hit,
and then there's just Eve fucking around with a baby doll.
Yeah, just being creepy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, outside, Maggie's wandering around in the snow and finds another child's shoe.
Right, and Seven finds one matching, but it's the one behind his head is a human adult-sized shoe. But the one she finds is a little baby shoe.
Yeah. It's so strange.
Yeah.
So we get this scene where like Maggie is telling Seven that she thinks Eve should meet her half-brother and half-sister.
Right. Boy, I really hope that becomes a thing that happens.
Right, like I guess one or both Maggie or Seven had a previous marriage.
It seems like it was Seven.
Yeah, because she says, I'm not jealous about it. I feel lucky to be with you. It's their loss that they, that...
Basically kicked you out after the war.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll never meet any of those characters.
Right. By the way, that's a shitty thing to do to your family member who's gone through war, right? Just be like, all right, you got to leave now.
Right, yeah. I mean, like, I know it's a common thing for divorce post-war with PTSD related, but it's usually when someone has PTSD that causes them to be violent.
Right, versus
whereas,
super passive.
Yeah, Seven, I mean, he's not violent. He just kind of has these, like, flashbacks and, goes catatonic. That's not hurting anybody. I mean, it's hurting him, but it's not hurting his family. I mean, I know mental health was not, like, as readily available in the 30s in America.
No, this is primetime lobotomy era, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but still, I mean, he's not a danger to his children or his wife. I don't know why they just kicked him out, but I guess maybe they needed a more reliable breadwinner.
Let's not talk about that shit, because that starts a whole conversation.
Right, yeah. Then we see Eve sitting in the car. She's got another doll, and she's cutting off its arms with scissors. And Seven's like, if you're gonna do surgery, you should do the joints. If you cut right through the middle of a bone, it causes all kinds of problems.
Right, you're gonna leave the ragged end. You won't be able to apply prosthetics or anything like that.
Yeah, so just, do it at the elbow or the shoulder or the wrist. Those are the places for amputations.
I mean, it makes sense. That's what you do with chicken, right? Whenever you're...
Right, yeah. And
Diogenes wept. Anyway.
So then we see, it's like a little later, they've come upon like this quiet farm, and they see a barn, and Maggie's like, we should sleep in the barn, and Seven's like, but it seems like this farm is active, like this is not abandoned. And she's like, yeah, we'll just stay out in the barn, we won't bother anybody. They set up, and then the next morning, they're woken up by the farmer who's standing over them.
But he's nice enough not to have stabbed him with his pitchfork.
Yeah, and in fact, he's like, he offers them to let them come inside and warm up by the fire before they leave.
Like, yeah, I think this guy is secretly the hero because his name is Eric. Eric Johansson.
Yeah, he's like this just very friendly Norwegian guy, and he's like, obviously you're trespassing and you need to go, but like I'm not kicking you out. Like let's go inside. You can warm up by the fire and be on your way. Everything's fine. And so everybody goes inside. He gives them some goat's milk. Starts talking about he served in the war as well, and now he's been a farmer for years. They're just talking about all that.
Yeah, but you could clearly tell Maggie's already ready to kill this guy.
Yeah, I mean, she's just, a powder keg. Like, at any time, she's ready to kill.
Right. Now, Eve's being really creepy, though, because she's like, it's about to happen. Shit's about to go down.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Eve just starts singing a song, and the farmer's like, oh, that melody, it reminds me of a song my mother used to sing when I was a child.
Right. He closes his eyes and starts singing this damn song.
Mm-hmm. And suddenly, Maggie jams a fire poker through his throat.
Yep. But, by the way, Eve does blindfold Seven right before this happens, because she knows what's happening.
Yeah.
She knows where this is going.
And Seven's like, wait, why did you do this?
It was Norwegian.
Yeah. Maggie's like, I'm just getting revenge for what the Germans did to you during the war.
Yeah,
and
he's not.
He's not German. He's Norwegian. And she's like, but that's a kind of German, right?
Yeah, sure, honey.
Like, sure. Close enough, sure. Like, I'm not going to make you feel bad for it. It's too late now.
Right, no use crying over spilled goat's milk, right?
Right. So then we see them later. They're they've left this guy's house. They're driving, and their car breaks down. And they're stuck by the side of the road. But they notice that there's a house like about, I think they say like a half mile down the road.
Yeah, after the radiator hose busted on the car.
Yeah. So they go knock on the door, and this kind of like rich guy answers. He's kind of very like dandy. He's like dressed well.
This is Daddy Starbucks, right? Or is that his name?
Warbucks.
Warbucks, sorry. That's fine. It works, right?
Yeah, they're both kind of accurate.
Yeah, anyway. But there's a feminine voice that's like, hey, honey, come back.
Yeah, and Seven's like, so I saw you have a garden hose by the barn. I just need to cut a few inches off of it.
Yeah,
I'll even pay you for the full hose.
Yeah, you need to go to the poor farmer guy and deal with that shit. My wife's out of town. I don't have a lot of girlfriends around. So fuck off.
Yeah. And, Seven's like, but you just said the farm's like 5 miles away. If we have to walk 5 miles and then, back. Yeah, it's going to be night. Like, we just could cut this right now and be out of your hair. And the guy's just like, nope, go talk to the farmer. See you later, bye. And just closes the door on them.
So this guy deserves a murdering.
Absolutely, yep. And sure enough, we cut right from that to Maggie sitting in the man's living room playing a ukulele while there are dead bodies strewn all about the floor.
Right. There's at least, 2 women and him? Like, he's in the couch, I think, or on the chair?
Yeah. And, they're just kind of all sitting around then, and, Maggie's like, those girls look like they're about your size, Eve. We should go ransack the closet, see if we can find you some clothes.
Basically loot all the nice clothes in the house, which, if fair, they're not using them anymore.
Yeah. It's just Seven and Maggie, or Eve and Maggie, because, of course, Seven's fixing the car.
Yeah. Well, she does get Seven a nice tie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he comes back in and is like, so I was able to get the car going again, but while we were gone, somebody stole the spare tire.
Hey, what happened to that axe? No.
Yeah, Maggie says, there's a special place in hell for thieves, and I run it.
Right.
Which is like such a good line. So now they're all there, and they're like, well, let's just ransack the whole place. Yeah. So they all split up. They're searching around the house.
Eve creepily plays the piano.
Mm-hmm. She also finds some more dolls that she cuts up. Maggie ends up finding a suit that she puts on.
Yeah, which you would think she would be like, hey, Seven, here's a suit for you. But no, she's like, hey, I look pretty good in this.
Yeah. And then in another room where Seven is searching, a girl bursts out of a closet.
Well, this is another thing where he's looking at an eagle. Like, he's seeing one on a branch, and he's just staring at it.
Oh, yeah, okay. So he's distracted. She bursts out and, attacks him.
This is their other actual daughter, right?
Yes, this is Lulu.
Yeah.
And, there's a bunch of commotion from this, obviously. Maggie hears, she runs in to check on him.
Right. Seven's gone. Also, he's cut up. He's dead.
Yeah. So, she also gets attacked. Maggie's like laying on the ground and the girl's on top of her, and Maggie grabs a shard of broken mirror and stabs the girl in the throat and kills her.
Right, so it seems like, okay, the family and the girl are all gone now. So it's just Eve, right?
Yeah, and we see her coming in, seeing all of the chaos, and then we immediately cut to her arriving back at the circus in the car. And she sees Mr. Tips performing, and while he's doing that, she sneaks into his tent.
Right. Which, rough, man. That sucks.
Yeah, if she had stolen it from him when he had all his fingers, that'd be one thing, but stealing it from him while he's actively cutting off his own fingers.
Right.
Coming back in and being like, fuck.
Right. What am I going to do now? Yeah. But, no, then for some reason, Maggie's still able to speak to her, and she's kind of like, hey, you're doing a good thing here. But it's like Eve sewing them together so Maggie's dead, but somehow it's already bringing her back to life.
Yeah, and she's like, I don't know what you're doing, what kind of deal you've made, but like if it brings your dad back to life, that's all that I care about. All I want in this world is for Seven to be alive.
Right. So then we cut to Eve singing again, and then they start doing their weird interpretive dance.
Yep. And
obviously like stilted. And the movements are not as smooth as they were.
Yeah. And part of it is that they, Seven and Maggie are supposed to reach in front of Eve and grab each other's hands. And when this happens, Maggie's hand just comes off.
Yeah,
and Seven's just holding it.
And then he goes into his fugue state, which it's darkly comedic.
Yeah, he just, falls like pratfall directly backwards, faints. And then Maggie's leg falls off. She collapses onto the ground.
And everybody just loses it. They just start clapping.
Yeah, the crowd just loves to see people getting mangled, apparently. But of course, and Mr. Tips is in the audience, and he sees, and he's like, I know what's up. Yeah. So a little later, he confronts Eve as she is sewing up a doll. And he's like, I know what you did, but it's no good. I told you, you can't speak the incantation. Yeah. I want my pincushion back. And she just, doesn't respond, can't speak.
Right. He's like, all right, I'll get it back sooner.
Yeah, he says, it looks like the devil's got a new dance partner. Be careful not to step on his toes. Yeah. And then we get this scene where the family, they have another corrupt person that they're killing, but it's this woman who is like gagged and screaming in the background.
She stole a spare tire from them, which if we'd seen it, it would matter a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But because she stole a spare from them, they've got to get some spare parts from her.
Right. But she also has like a Plinko type game that they're playing in her house, and they're like just fascinated with it. But yeah, as you said, they're like, well, you took our tire, so it's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
But by the way, Seven seems a little bit stunted at this point. Like his development has kind of reduced. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was always a little quiet, but now he's more in his fugue state, just kind of like all the time. Like
he's speaking in like 1 or 2 word sentences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's clearly has some brain damage from the attack.
Yeah, I guess sewing it up won't help that, right?
Yeah. So we see Eve performing the surgery on Maggie using the arm and the leg from the tire thief.
Yeah, we get a little bit more backstory that Maggie was actually Seven's nurse before all this.
Yeah, like that is. Once he came back from the war, he tried to be a doctor, and that's where I think he was a medic in the war and tried to like use that in real life. And she loved working under him. But,
she loved cleaning up the blood that was left after his surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like she just clearly just loves violence. Mm-hmm. Like it's just thrilling to her.
Well, she even tells Eve, she's like, "Hey, when you killed her, how did that feel? Right? That felt pretty fucking good, right? Like a rush."
Yeah. And Eve just smiles at her, and you can tell Maggie's proud. Like, I'm raising another killer.
Well, she says, "You may have your dad's hands for sewing things up, but you've got my hand for killing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then we cut to like another carnival. Like it seems like it's sort of a different carnival. Like these nomadic people are sort of like jumping from one organization to another.
Right. Which they all have the same people, I guess. So they're all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I love how this is the ice festival or some crap, and it says "No mask, no fun."
Yeah, and this, the boss is like super excited. Like the guy that runs this carnival, he's like, "I've heard great things about your new act. I really can't wait to see it. I'm so honored that you're joining us." And he's telling this all to Seven, who's just kind of like slack-jawed, staring at him. And then Maggie comes rushing over, and she's like, "Oh, Seven, I was looking for you. I was so worried." And she just kind of like pulls him away really quick, knowing that that interaction probably didn't go well.
Yeah, he's like, I'm hungry.
Yeah. So then we see in their tent, Eve is helping to get Seven some food. She's helping Maggie get dressed. And
pours Seven some milk.
Mm-hmm. And then Eve and Maggie leave Seven to finish his food, and they are walking around through the backstage area. They see 2 musicians who are wearing like pillowcases over their heads with like faces drawn on them, and have nooses. Yeah, they're performer, or they're like musicians that go under the name the Hangin' Boys.
Right.
And they're getting ready to go perform.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's dark stuff.
Yeah, man.
And Maggie is like talking to Eve. She's like, "This new hand is rotting fast. Like, I'm gonna need another one really soon."
Right. And I believe this is when she's kind of like in the room with Rocky, and she's like, "Hey, I can't really play your ukulele anymore, but you've got some nice hands, Rocky." And I'm like, "Oh no!"
Yeah. And Rocky's like, I heard you've got a new act, and I'm really excited to see it. I heard it's nasty."
Right. And Mr. Tips, he's rotten from his hands up.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like he made a deal with the devil, and now he's paying the price.
Yep. Nothing good rots, which, I mean, everything rots.
Yeah.
Some more slowly than others. But
yeah.
I don't know if it's the goodness that causes it.
Right, yeah. Meanwhile, we cut back to Seven in his tent, and a guy comes in, and starts talking to him, and then notices that Seven's like basically out of it.
Right. He's like, well, just have a swig of your milk, buddy. And
yeah, and when Seven doesn't really say anything or try to stop him, he just reaches into Seven's coat, pulls out his wallet, and he's just like, honor among thieves, and he just strolls out with it.
Boy, I really hope that we get a name for this character and like some comeuppance. Anyway, never mentioned ever again.
Yeah. Then we cut right to another war nightmare.
This is where the Premier Pro tank appears.
Yeah. Yeah, Seven's like hiding as this tank kind of drives through. And
all right, let's talk about this guy, because there's a dude who's like freaking his fucking shit out, right? But then there's two other guys in gas masks. They're just like, hey, what are you fucking gonna do, you know?
Right. They're just chill, but like, yeah, this one guy is like, he's injured or dying, and he's just like talking about it, like he's, kind of out of his head. And Seven is like, you are gonna get us all killed, like someone's gonna hear you. And he finally just has to go over and just cut the guy's throat just to shut him up.
And the other guys, who clearly have bayonets fixed, could have just skewered the guy, and they're just like, hey, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah. So then we go back to the family performing again. Eve is singing. Maggie's arm falls off again.
Right.
But this time it seems to go well otherwise, and the crowd likes it. And then we get the most music video all of the music video montages.
This is like for some reason, like a flash of each of the performers, including Mr. Tips, Rocky, Nesmi.
And they're performing in front of like a black background, so they're just kind of like floating in and out of frame. Like, this is not in any way like a realistic montage or scene at all. Like it is. It's
reminiscent of Until It Sleeps by Metallica, right? That video.
Yeah. Yes.
So look it up. There you go.
But yeah, we see several of the other performers, and in fact, like you said, the guy that looks kind of like Marilyn Manson, he is like singing lyrics to the song that's playing in the background. Yeah. And eventually, like as the sort of montage ends, we get another newspaper spinning into frame that says that the family has been invited to perform at the Buffalo Horror Show.
They made it.
Yeah.
But we also get to see Mr. Tips literally rotting.
Yeah, his performance now is he just kind of shows people like, hey, look at my gross ass hand. Yeah. And that's it. And people are like, oh, good job. It's gross.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
I feel like they would pay him not to do that, right? They'd be like, please stay away from me, sir.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be too close to that in case it's contagious or whatever. But then we get a little later, Mr. Tips talking to Seven, and he's just kind of like, he knows what's going on. He's just kind of cruelly mocking Seven, like, you're going to be stuck like this forever because your daughter did this and she can't fix it, right? Because she can't do the incantation, and that's the most important part to make it really stick.
And it's like Seven's almost to that point as well, right? Where he's kind of catatonic, and Mr. Tips is like, "Yeah, sure. Here's the incantation, buddy. Too bad nobody's ever going to say it, or you can't tell to anybody."
Yeah. And then we see later Maggie talking to Rocky again, and she's like, Rocky, you should just take this ukulele. My fingers just don't work too good these days. And Rocky, like, you can tell she just feels sorry for it. She's just like, no, just keep it. You never know. Like, you may need it again.
Right, there's a back and forth at this point where it's like, no, you take it. No, you take it.
Yeah. And finally Rocky's like, oh, I gotta go, but I'm excited to see your show tonight. I'll see you afterwards.
Right, I feel like that statement probably saved Rocky's life, right?
So Maggie heads back to their room where, of course, there are baby shoes. Yep, just tied to the doorknob.
Like, okay, I don't want to tell on myself or anything, but I remember that was a sign for something different.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple places where that was a different thing. When it's on a doorknob, that means one thing. Hanging from a telephone wire means another, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
But she goes inside, and Eva is in there. She's got a doll hanging from a noose, and she's just smiling as she takes pictures of it.
Being the creepiest fucking kid ever.
Yeah. And or no, Maggie doesn't go in there. We just get Eva by herself
Right.
doing that. And then she hears a loud thump and bursts into the room and sees both Maggie and Seven laying on the floor.
Well, pieces laying on the floor for sure. They're like in their own piles.
Yeah. And Maggie's like, I was trying to help Seven get dressed, but he fell, and then I lost my balance, and I fell too. We're just rotten, Eve. Like, the devil took the best of us, and he left us here just rotten, broken pieces of nothing.
Oh, no.
And she's like, just end it. I don't want to be the devil's puppet anymore.
Right. And then Seven starts talking, though, and he's reciting the incantation.
It's just like barely at a whisper, but Eve hears, and she looks at the heart, and it's like she has an idea. And then we get the sort of like twist to this movie that is really weird, but like it's set up so well, like with the POV shot. So we have like Eve from behind walking down a hall,
And something
like
following her.
Yeah, the camera is definitely a person's point of view. It's not just the camera. Like, in fact, as it's going down the hall, the camera will turn left and right and look in, like, open rooms and see other performers. And it's like, seeing people and everything. And at one point, Eve stops and turns around and, like, smiles at the camera.
Right. And then they go up the stairs. Now, just a quick question, Anthony. Have you seen Sleepaway Camp?
Yes.
That means nothing. Pay no attention to what I just said. Anyway.
Yeah, as they're like walking up the stairs to get on stage, we see the goth clowns one more time, and they're like pushed up against the wall, like they do not want to come
Right,
close
like
to
what
whatever.
the fuck is this?
Yeah. So we get, Eve walks on stage. She starts singing the incantation. She can't speak, but she can sing.
There you go.
So, the devil's pulse begins to thicken or quicken, and yeah, there's a tear in the heart where the devil roams. But then, like midway through the song, a second spotlight kicks on, and there's a harmony that joins.
Right, but it's like a multi-tonal harmony.
And it is Maggie's head on Seven's body.
With no clothes.
Yep, just blood splatter, fully naked, dick out.
Yep,
and
hanging dog.
Yeah, but with Maggie's head. So, yes, the Sleepaway Camp thing is definitely apt. It feels like a very similar ending.
Right. It's like, I feel like the Addams Family has definitely seen it, right? Get one good shock ending in on it. But also, I guess it's also kind of referenced when Maggie puts on the tuxedo, right? She's kind of putting on something that's masculine.
So. Yeah. Yeah, and there's definitely like a sense, as we like, obviously Maggie's body was breaking down from the attack, and Seven's mind was. He had brain damage from it, so, Eve is able to use the best parts of both of them I think it's probably not too much of a stretch to say that this is kind of like a metaphor for like parenting. Like, you're supposed to give your kid the best parts of you, and your spouse gives them the best parts of them.
Yeah.
And that makes a new person that is hopefully better because they've learned from your mistakes, and obviously it doesn't always go that way. But
Right.
like, I think here, especially with this being an actual family, I think that's kind of maybe what they're nodding to here. That like, they're teaching Zelda and making her the best version of their
that they could make of her, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is a prequel to the House of a Thousand Corpses movies, right? This is Great Grandma Firefly or something like that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, this definitely is like the darkest thing that the Addams Family has done of what I've seen, at least. They've made a lot of movies that like are just kind of like not in print and hard to find, but of the like I think I've seen like 4 or 5 of their movies, and they're all horror really, but like this one just is like grim on a level that like Hellbender is more fun.
I think bleak would be a good descriptor word for this.
Yes. Which I think that that comes with, if you set a movie during the Great Depression, it has to be bleak. Like, what else is there?
Grapes of Wrath and all that.
Yeah. The ending, like, I think definitely is what pushed it over the top for me in terms of like being like, okay, I think this counts as a Frankenstein. You have mixed 2 dead bodies together to make one person.
Yeah, listen, you bust out the string and you get them to work. That's pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's more mystical and devil related than like science,
Right.
but it felt right. It definitely, like, every time that this family puts out a movie, I'm just like so excited. Like they just keep getting bigger and weirder. So yeah, I think this is their. I think they might have a new one that's like in festivals or whatever, but this is the newest one that's like out and available to the public.
Right.
So definitely recommend checking this one out, as well as Hellbender and whatever else you can get your hands on from them.
This is definitely a spectacle, so it's worth checking it out for that at least.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. Well, anything else we got to say about it, Anthony?
I think that's it on this one.
Okay. Well, we've been going on a pretty connected streak of whether it be with the devil or deals with the devil or other such things with brides and such things like that. So let's try to take a break from tradition a little bit and let's jump the shark. The Sharkenstein.
Yeah, it's summertime, so I was
Yeah.
like, we should do some fun beach type movies. So yep, next week, Sharkenstein. I believe this is from Full Moon, or at least they're associated with it. It's one of the many shark movies that the late aughts brought to our that are all sort of results of like the Sharknado movies.
Right.
Basically.
Full Moon took a look at it and was like, hey, the Asylum's doing this, and it's working pretty good for them.
Yep. So I don't think I have seen this one. If I have, it is fully erased from my mind.
Yeah.
So
It's a new one for me as well.
I'm interested to see what a Frankenstein shark will be like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've kind of seen that, right, with Sky Sharks. Sky Shark!
Yeah. I think when we did Sky Sharks, I almost put this one close to it, and then I was like, that's too much shark
That's
together.
too
We
much
should-
shark,
We
yeah.
should spread the shark material out.
Right. You can't have that much shark. It's it could eat you in that one big bite, but you can't eat it in that big of a bite,
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, fair enough. All right, Anthony, where can they find us?
So you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. You can also find us over on YouTube. And, of course, you can find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where we're always up to new things. We're wrapping up the Monsters Today. We're looking at the very first play adaptation of Frankenstein. I read a whole audiobook recently. There's all kinds of weird stuff over there, so we'd love to have you come check that out.
Absolutely. Well, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.